Hi, welcome to episode 148 of Fresh Air at 5, titled Sitting on the Couch. Well, sitting on the couch is not something that I typically do as I listen to podcasts, but I get out on my street, I walk, and I get some exercise, and I reflect, and I connect with podcasters. Well, last week, I underwent oral surgery, and my mouth is sore, and I've been resting so that I can heal, and the gums can heal. So, as a result of that, I haven't walked at all this week, but I have sat on my couch or in a chair and listened to podcasts intentionally in the morning. So weird to do, but it's the way I've done it this week because I need to catch up on some of my listening. Not catch up, but stay current with it and bring you some podcasts that I have reflected on. So without further ado, check out episode 148 here of Fresh Air at 5.
I'm Rachel Johnson, co-host of the EduGals podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAt5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Appeal in December 5, 2023. Good morning to you, Fresh Air at 5. And I'm coming to you from my garage, and I did not walk this morning. I'm recovering from dental surgery from last Friday, so I'm just taking it easy and not pushing myself too hard. But this morning I did put my headphones in, and I sat on my couch, and I listened to episode 12 of The Generative Age with Alana Winnick, as she brings us part 2 of a conversation that she had with Tom Rogerson from Cottesmore School in England, and they were talking about the integration of AI into their workspace there. They have a chat bot that they developed called Abigail Bailey back about a year ago, and since then they have shortened her name to Abby and dehumanized her a little bit by taking off a human-looking avatar and taking away her pronouns and things like that, so that Abby is more toolish as opposed to human-looking, and talk about, how we can integrate AI technologies into our understanding and learning space. Tom talks a lot about, in this episode, about the development of their Cottesmore conferences on AI and how they started those and have continued with those, and their virtual conferences that we could jump in and be part of for learning about AI. A lot going on in this episode. So many things to hear. So take a listen for yourself. You're curious about AI? I strongly suggest that you subscribe to Alana's podcast so that you can get current information and understand, from some thought leaders about their experiences with artificial intelligence. Is there one right answer? I'm not sure. But if we don't do the learning, we won't come up with our own right answer. All right. I'm going to jump into another podcast and take a listen here, and I'll bring you something else in just a few minutes. But thanks for watching. Okay. One more thing for December 5, 2023. I listened to episode 83 of Evolving with Gratitude with my friend and podcaster, Lainey Rowell. And Lainey, thanks so much for your thoughts as you bring us a series that you wrote, blog series that you wrote, articles for Thrive Global with Ariana Huffington. And these 3 articles that you do a solo episode on episode 83, share with us the ideas of crafting your path to journaling with bold gratitude and how that we can, in these, looking at these 3 articles, look at the science of gratitude, look at the practice of rituals and habits in our daily lives for gratitude, and then the ripple effects of gratitude and how we can see that beyond ourselves. So if you're not familiar with Lainey's Bold Gratitude Journal, she's written a journal that we can use. And Lainey, true story, I haven't even opened it. And that's bad on me because it's not really my writing thing, but I need to start doing that and doing something about that. So as we get into the Christmas season, I think I'm going to open up the Bold Gratitude Journal and get going on it. But I am grateful on a regular basis. I do that here through reflecting here on my podcast, Fresh Air at 5, talking about the things that are going on in my space and sharing those with my community. So it's not that I'm not grateful. It's just that it's the mode that I'm doing that. And this is exactly what you talk about in these in the second part of your series here about having a regular intentional ritual about being intentional about thinking about our habits, things that are automatic, but making them clear and visible to ourselves so that we can get some benefit out of those. All right, friends, take a listen to Lainey's thoughts. And there's a lot in here. She's got some pause and reflect moments in her podcast. So jump in, do this stuff, and be grateful. Appreciate you. Have a fabulous day. APLN, it is December 6, 2023. Hope you're doing well. I am here taking some rest and not walking, as you can see. And so, yes, recovering from dental surgery. If you have already heard that in this episode or you listened to the daily yesterday, you'll know that that's going on for me. So this week is going to be a rest week, but I am listening to podcasts, put my headphones in so that I can sit here in a chair and still taking some podcast content and bring you some reflections this week. All right, so episode 152 of God Tech the Podcast has me listening to Eric and Nick bring us an episode called How to Build Your EdTech Toolkit. And if you're a God Tech Podcast listener, you've heard them talk about these strategies in the past, but today they summarize them in this episode of some strategies to think about for how you look at EdTech in your classroom, what you're bringing to your students. And in this episode, they bring us the teacher side of the toolkit, things that teachers should consider for lesson planning, activity development, assessment, presentations, and giving feedback, and the different tools that we can use for these tasks that we have to do. Some AI now in our space, artificial intelligence is able to help us with some of these things. And Magic School floats to the top, Diffit floats to the top, Canva floats to the top of this list that I'm looking at of a number of tools in these different areas that Eric and Nick bring us. So be open-minded, think about it, but don't overwhelm yourself. Don't over-tool yourself, because having too many tools is tool paralysis, and we cannot do very well in this space. So I've got some go-tos for myself. One of my go-tos is Adobe Express, but Canva can do many of the same things. And I have to look at Screencast-O-Matic's new name and see what it can do for screen recording. Thanks, Eric and Nick. Have a fabulous day. Talk to you guys. Look forward to the student side. Bye. APL, and it is December 7, 2023. Carpenter coming to you from the couch or the chair. This is a chair. But I am sitting here today, as I said before, because I am recovering from oral surgery and need to take a rest this week. But I am taking time every morning to sit in a chair and listen to a podcast. This morning I got my big headphones on because I misplaced my other one yesterday and I got to find it. So my little one. So I listened this morning to episode 132 of the Che and Pav show, brought to you by Cheney and Pav Wander out of Ontario, Toronto. And if you're not familiar with their content, I suggest that you look them up and follow their show because they provide some insightful content and commentary on teaching real life and with students in the middle school classrooms in their classroom space. Authentic teachers. I appreciate your thoughts at the beginning of the episode about authenticity in the classroom and doing what you say you do, or making suggestions and implying that what you're doing is actually what you're doing, but you're not actually doing it. You'll have to listen to Che and Pav go on about that, about authenticity in their podcast. Pro D they're doing tomorrow at ETT. So congratulations on having that opportunity. I would really like to sit in on that session because I'm trying to teach my students about podcasting. Okay, this isn't about podcasting. This is about deconstructing photos in the classroom and how do we use photography and photographs in our classroom space. I'm working with my grade 9s and 10s right now on a photography unit about how to take photos, how to set up and capture information with a camera, and how to, photo manipulate and do things like that. But this episode is about using photographs to convey a story or a message and have students dig into that. I like the what do you see, what do you wonder, what's the context, hashtags, things like that. Take a listen to Che and Pav. Good to hear from both of you. Have a fabulous day, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, December 8, 2023. Welcome to Friday. Here we are, Friday of this week. There are 2 Fridays of school before the end of this school year for 2023, before we roll into January. So I'm not going to lie, I am actually looking forward to Christmas, looking forward to the break. But before that, we've got Friday to deal with here and the rest of the next 2 weeks. So excited about our Christmas opportunities at school. Pretty kind of low key, but we've got staff breakfast and we've got activities. We've got, last day parties for our students that come into our building, and just being able to hang out with our kids and see them before they head off for winter break. This morning I listened to episode 8 of Behind the Mic, the Voices of the EPN, which is the podcast that Chris Nesi has as he interviews us podcast hosts that are part of the Educational Podcast Network. Today's episode is with Angela Kelly Robeck, who is the Empowered Principal host of the podcast, and she brings us a great discussion about how she got started, about using a podcast producer. So if it's a challenge for yourself, that, you can hire someone to help you get your content out there, which I'm seeing some other podcasters do if you're not technically able to do that right away, quickly and efficiently. And she also talks about her motivation for having her podcast as a certified life coach and leader consultant about principalship and administration. And Kelly, or Angela, thank you so much for your thoughts. I appreciate that. I have kind of taken a step back from pursuing administration in my district at this point, and not sure if I'll do that more in the future. But, thoughts about leadership is so important, that we are leaders in our classroom spaces. And as a podcaster, it gives me just a different perspective. So, with that being said, take a listen to episode 8 of Behind the Mic, Voices of the EPN. Thanks so much. Bye. The last thing for December 8, 2023, I listened to a bonus episode of Teach Happier with Suzanne Daly, as Suzanne brings us a bonus episode because it was a form of a blog that's on the Teach Better website, and it is called EGBs. And Suzanne, thank you so much for your thoughts about EGBs and about basketball and about leadership in a basketball team, and where do we see such leadership and how we have competent players that go out and play. They know how to do their job. They do it so very well, but how bench time for players and those players that are on the bench are leaders as much as the point guard and the shooting guard and the center on a basketball team. And it's about teamwork. It's about supporting your team and the ideas around how do we bring energy generating behaviors to our team. And you might not be the star of the basketball team, but you can be the star of the basketball team by being a leader where you are. And that same goes for us as teachers, and as we are going through our days, we have some days that, just suck the energy right out of us, and we're all kind of flat and kind of low. And we need to make sure that we are taking time to be leaders in our spaces, regardless of our positional leadership, to lift each other up, to encourage one another, to cheer each other on from the sidelines, to support one another, and to be there for each other. So those energy generating behaviors take energy to make happen, but they will return good results, and we will have a much higher morale as a staff. Right now, things aren't the best at my school, and I need to make sure that I'm continuing with my energy generating behaviors. They have waned in the past month, but we're going to get them back. And thanks so much, Suzanne, for that encouragement today. All right. Have a fabulous day, fabulous Friday. And this is it for From the Couch, Fresh Air at 5, episode 148. Take care. Bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Cold Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.